Hello everyone, Tim Brown. Welcome back to my Apple Podcast. For this episode, I want to feature iMovie for the desktop. I covered iMovie for iOS recently. I was very impressed by a new design. And lo and behold, to my surprise, the design for the desktop closely mirrors the design for iOS. So Apple is slowly but surely merging the two platforms. Not quite there yet, but you can see already from an aesthetic standpoint, iMovie for the desktop looks very similar to iMovie for iOS. So this is iMovie for the desktop, and I'm using my MacBook Pro and the Mavericks operating system right now. And here is an image or screenshot of iMovie for iOS. And what do you notice right away? Everything has been simplified. The gradient bars have been removed, and the icons are very simple, plain, and flat. Skeuomorphism gone. Let's take a look at a screenshot from an early version of iMovie. Here you can see the gradient bars, totally different look. It almost looks archaic compared to the recent version. In some ways, Apple actually eliminates some features that were evident in the older version, while at the same time introducing new features that the older version did not have. So let's explore exactly what those are. But basically everything's the same. You start a new project and a new event pretty much the same way. Let's start with a new event. You go to File and New Event. New event is basically how you set up your media files. And once that is set up, you can begin importing content into your event. The next step would usually be to set up a new project. This is where you would then edit your project in the timeline mode. There isn't a new project feature in the new version. Instead, you just have the option to choose a new movie or just simply click create at the top. So that's what we're going to do. And here you have a beautiful view of all the templates, and you can preview them all. It was also evident in the older version. And here's a screenshot to show you how similar and different they are. So you can see in the new version, the icons are, or should I say the thumbnails are actually a lot larger and a lot clearer, at least in my opinion, in terms of how they're presented. So let's go ahead and just select no theme and click create. I'm just going to call this sample and let's move on. So I now have a project called sample and an event called sample. And with that event selected, I'm going to go ahead and begin importing some content into my project by clicking on that import button. I'm just going to bring in this title clip here. So I now have this title clip inside my event, and I'm going to drag it to the timeline so that I can start editing my project. In the new version, you will notice that Apple decided to streamline some of the features, largely due to the fact that Apple has redistributed where you access some of the controls. For example, if I right click on this video on my timeline here, you see I have a pretty straightforward menu of options that include detaching audio, adding a freeze frame, splitting a clip, and so forth. Now let me go ahead and show you a screenshot of the earlier version. Now you see in the earlier version you have a much more extensive array of options, including the ability to change your project theme or access project properties. So let me go ahead and just review where all the controls are in the new version of iMovie. On the left-hand side is where you now find the transitions, and you can drag them to your timeline like such. You can also add titles, pretty much the same way as the older version. You can add maps and backgrounds. One thing that's missing though in this version is, in the older version, you also would have the option to add storyboard templates. Apple decided to remove that feature in this version. You can also access iTunes Music, sound effects, and GarageBand. Now I'm going to go ahead and select the clip in the timeline. I'm going to move up top here, and you'll see I have another set of controls here as well, where I can control the color and the white balance and so forth. I'm going to move on down the line here. You see I can also control contrast and value and tonalities as well using the paint icon. And you will notice this is very similar to the controls you find in iPhoto. So already Apple's beginning to mix things up a bit and capitalize on some of the features that are in other applications. Here you also have the option to crop, and this includes the Ken Burns effect, or a simple direct crop, or just fitting your image so that it fits right within the screen. There's an anti-stabilization feature, which is really nice, and the option to control audio, including the ability to lower the volume of one clip while another clip is playing. And you can reduce background noise as well. And here is where you can add video effects. So you can see that you still have the same features in many cases. It's just that Apple has decided to redistribute them in other locations. I do like how Apple has decided to simplify some of the features to make the user interface a whole lot easier for you while editing your project. For example, let's go ahead and add a soundtrack to my video here. I'm going to go to import, I'll select my event, and then go to import, and I'm going to select this song. Before, you were limited in terms of how many different types of files you can import into your project. For the large part, you had to go through iPhoto or GarageBand or some built-in application. Here I'm just accessing a folder that's in my movies folder. So there's a lot more flexibility there. So I'm going to go ahead and accept this wave file here and import that into my project. And I'm now going to grab this file and I'm going to drag it to my timeline down below. And if you remember iMovie from before, this could be cumbersome at times, and I feel that Apple this time around has made it a whole lot simpler. In general, I just think a lot of features are a lot simpler and easier to use. I'm going to go ahead and control click on my audio file here, and I'm just going to split it. And that's going to enable me to shorten that clip. I'm going to go ahead and delete the other half there. And what's nice too, with this option, there's a little dot along the bottom. I can grab that dot and then drag it. What that does is add a nice fade out effect to the music. So I can go ahead and play this. This is a little intro video that I put together. And you're going to notice at the end that the music is going to fade out. So it's nice adding that little element right inside the audio clip. Very similar to actually the version in iOS where you have a yellow triangle that enables you to do the exact same thing. Now in the older version, Apple did offer some great options for overlays, including picture-in-picture options, side-by-side options, and so forth, including the ability to add green screen effects. Yet I like what Apple has done with the new version. So let's take a look. Okay, so in my project library or in my event library, I have a panorama that I took with my iPhone in the park. Now watch what happens when I drag this panorama to the timeline. I'm going to go ahead and just play this. I want you to watch this carefully. What you notice here is that by default, your panorama is set up like a Ken's burn effect, where you can pan from left to right across your entire panorama. This is really cool. So for example, with that image selected, if I went to crop, you'll see that the Ken Burns effect has already been set up. I love this feature. Now let's go ahead and explore the overlay features, which were also evident in the older version of iMovie, but which are slightly different in the new version. So let's take a look. I'm going to go ahead and import another photo into my event here, which is a PNG of myself with a transparent background. I'm now going to go ahead and take that image while it's selected, and I'm going to drag it right on top of my panorama image. Now in older versions, when you did this, you would immediately get a pop-up window that then instructed you on what to do. For example, if you wanted to apply green screen or picture-in-picture or side-by-side or what have you, that menu would pop up as soon as you drop that image into your timeline. Here it's a little different. Here I have the image already sitting on my timeline, and with that image selected, I then have an option to go up to the menu up above, and you'll see that an overlay settings icon has been set up. When I deselect that photo, it goes away. When I select it, it comes back. So it's recognizing that there's a photo on top of my main timeline image, and as a result, I now have an option to apply overlays. So the first option is cutaway. You can then apply a green or blue screen option, or you can apply side by side, or picture in picture. So if we go back to the cutaway mode and we open up the crop, you'll see here that my image has been cropped, but I'm going to go ahead and extend this full screen. I'm going to get rid of the Ken Burns effect and just use a straightforward crop. Go back to my overlay, and now you see that I fit nicely within the panorama. But I can explore other options. Now this isn't a green screen background, but I can explore side by side, which is a nice option, or I can explore picture in picture, which gives me even more flexibility, where I can resize and then reposition this transparent image anywhere I want. Now I also want to show you the green screen feature that comes with the new version of iMovie. I'm going to go ahead and grab a little small clip in my library here. I'm going to drag it to my timeline on top of my main image in the timeline, so I can take advantage of the overlay feature using green screen. Before I begin though, I'm going to go up to crop and crop my image a bit. This isn't the most ideal image in the world because I want to close in on just this section that I added a green screen to. So I'm going to wind up cropping my face quite a bit just so I can get the green screen to show up here. Okay, now I'm going to go to the overlay feature, and instead of cutaway, I'm going to go down to green screen. And you can see that right away it immediately eliminated the background. Now you noticed in my clip though, my lighting wasn't ideal. You could see some variations in the green color of my background. Typically not good practice, and as a result you can see on the left hand side of me there's a little white cloud there, which suggests that I'm not getting the best green screen effect that I could possibly get. There's an option up above here for softness, and you can go back and forth and play around with the softness to determine whether you can get rid of any of those imperfections. For me, it's not quite working. I can still see some of the white cloudy film on the left hand side. However, what's really nice is that Apple offers this cleanup feature. There's a little eraser on the right hand side here. I can click on that eraser and then just go ahead and just tap in that area where the cloud is, and it cleans that area right up. So even with an imperfect green screen, I was able to get the effect that I wanted, which is really cool. Okay, as I begin to wrap this session up, I want to focus on two features now that definitely separates the new iMovie from older versions. Let's start with the option to share. You can see here with share, you have some familiar options. You can email, send iTunes file sharing, YouTube, Facebook, Vimeo, CNN, iReport, and or just export it as a file. The first option is Theater. Theater is basically Apple's version of an iCloud-based storage system. By sharing your video in the cloud, what Apple calls Theater, you'll be able to access your video project anywhere on any device. Not the project itself, not the working files, but the final exported file can be viewed on any device at any time because it's stored in the cloud. And this is a great option to have. Comparing this option with earlier versions, let's take a look at what the export options look like in earlier versions of iMovie. As you can see here, the options were very different, but what is most noticeable is that Theater is not an option. So Apple right now is beginning to think of iMovie not only as a creation tool, but as a consumption tool as well. And that takes us to the Theater tab right next to the Library tab up at the top. And what you see here is an actual video file. I created this video file on my iPad right after I received or purchased my MacBook Pro. I basically took a bunch of photo stills documenting the unboxing, and I was so excited about it that I took those stills and made a video from them. And I saved it to Theater from my iPad. And when I saved it to Theater, I noticed that when I picked up my iPhone, as well as when I opened my desktop computer, by clicking on the Theater option, I could access that same video. Essentially, Theater is a cloud-based way to share and view all of your video files. So now I can go ahead and click on this video and play it right on my desktop. Okay everyone, I was very excited to unbox my new MacBook Pro. that I just received yesterday. We're looking at some screenshots of the computer as it was coming out of the box. That's right. It's a beauty. I've been using it all day today, and I have to say, I'm very excited. And that is the new iMovie. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of My Apple Podcast. My name is Tim Brown. You can check me out at myapplepodcast.com, or you can reach me by email at myapplepodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, see you later.